nice ones. Even friends.
Dissector. Smear it across the ground. Mine.
Hello and welcome to Exiles. Today we're here for the 10 div challenge, day number 6, and today I went with a spectral shield throw juggernaut. The idea was pretty simple. I was going to get a pretty hefty rare chest with a lot of armor, roll for determination and aura effect, roll for a bunch of fire res on my gear, and use Formless Inferno. On our character we have roughly about 200-ish fire res, a little more than that, 200 something res over fire res, and that gives us a bunch of percent armor thanks to Formless Inferno, which is how we're scaling our armor. We got to about 300k. If I have my flasks up, we get about to 400k roughly speaking. The idea is pretty simple. I'm stacking a bunch of armor, so that way Replica Dream Feather gives me a bunch of percent damage scaling for Spectral Shield Throw. Spectral Shield Throw is generally a typically hard skill to scale. Same with all the shield skills. There's not a lot of stats on the tree per se for percent damage scaling for that sort of thing. So that's why you have to go for this sort of approach where you scale the percent damage elsewhere. And I decided to go with Rebel Dream Feather. It pairs nicely with Juggernaut, with the Juggernaut Unbreakable node. Makes you very tanky without necessarily going for spell suppressor or any of that shenanigans. And although we are very defensive, we get a little bit of offense from things like Calm Spirit, things like the percent damage scaling, and that was just the idea I had behind this character altogether. Of course, we use Emperor's Vigilance. It's an insanely strong shield for SST. Very, very hard to beat unless you have a very high budget, and it just gives you a lot of crit multi-scaling, a lot of flat damage scaling, especially when paired with Seething Fury. I don't think you play the shield skills without Seething Fury, or at least I have a hard time seeing a reason to play the shield skills without Seething Fury. Maybe you could justify it for a bleed build or something, I'm not quite sure, but point is, Seething Fury represents something like close to 6 base crit and a bunch of crit multi, almost 150 crit multi just from this shield. So you really want to go with Seething Fury because it gives you ability to scale into crit without having a ton of crit scaling on your tree. I went for basically 2 crit clusters, this crit cluster node here, and then I went for things like power charges and Assassin's Mark. That's most of the stuff I think for scaling there. I also opted to go for Arn's Anguish with determination effect. Pretty cheap, not too expensive. It comes with a lot of fire res, which scales our armor, and then allows us to turn the endurance charges from Juggernaut into actual damage in the triple damage charges, because Juggernaut really kind of lacks damage. We have 300,000 armor. We don't really need the phys reduction from endurance charges, so we might as well turn that into some single target. Now, the one regret I have for this character is I decided to go for Yoke of Suffering. I thought, you know what, I'm dealing fire damage. Let me go ahead and get some shocks on enemy with Yoke of Suffering. Unfortunately, we don't actually end up hitting that high of shock effect because we don't really have any ailment scaling in our build. Normally, when you're going an elemental build, there's a lot of free scaling. Like if you grab a crit cluster, you can get 50% ailment effect there. That takes a 20% shock to a 30% shock. If you go for the elemental node and elemental mastery, that gives you another 40% ailment effect there. That'll take you all the way up to like a 40% shock. Stuff like that starts to make this amulet make sense. But I didn't really think this through, that my tree didn't really have access to those things because the crit nodes near me that would give me that, this is all melee crit. It doesn't apply to Spectral Shield Throw. If I did something like a Shield Crush Jug, these nodes would be accessible, but for Spectral Shield Throw or Projectile, it doesn't work for us. So moral of the story is, this is kind of a dead amulet because on Uber bosses, I'm only getting like 15% shocks. It's really not worth it at that point. I think a much better options would obviously Eternal Damnation would be the obvious choice to make ourselves super tanky, or some other amulets for single target. Originally, when I was playing this build, I was considering doing another leadership. I was considering doing leadership's price for the Try, Brittle, and Scorch and stuff like that. But then I thought, you know what? I don't want to balance my attributes. It's going to be a pain to set up. Although I really think Leadership's Price is one of the strongest amulets in the game, I don't usually build around it a lot of times, even when it's the right option, because I'm just too dang lazy / I don't want to balance my attributes. That's something I generally am not super excited about doing. I think I did it once this challenge for maybe the Pyroclast Miner, I can't remember, but it still is one of those things where it ends up being a pain to balance those attributes. So that's just my usually a lot of times it's an amulet I want to use, but a lot of times I talk myself out of it for that. I have a Lethal Pride where I just went for like fire res and life. This one turned out pretty good. It was like 100 C off trade. The ability to search up what mods you can get on a timeless jewel really ends up making you able to get some really good timeless jewels for not a lot of money. Definitely check up like googling timeless jewel calculator or something like that. Really recommend it. If you're doing timeless jewels, it makes them so much stronger to be able to calculate a decent jewel and not have to spend time divining a jewel or buying a bunch and then socking a bunch in. It takes a lot of the pain of timeless jewels and gives you straight to the optimized jewel, or a decently optimized jewel for not too much money. Outside of all that, this is the tree I went with. I'm not sure this area was worth it. It might have been a smarter play to go up this direction where there's more armor access. I'm not 100% sure. All in all, this character did decently. We did 6 out of 8 of the Ubers. We failed on Exarch and Cirrus, mainly due to the fact I opted to go for Berserk, which basically deleted my regen. Jugg, we would have a lot of regen, but since I went for this, we have to sustain via a leech and life flask, but that gives us Berserk, which Berserk's a nice damage multiplier, but it comes at the cost of degens are now much more dangerous. Even though we would have high regen, we sacrificed it for the ability to have some Berserk in our build, which I'm not sure is really the right play, because Untiring is so good for sustain and basically making a character feels good, not die a lot. And sacrificing it for Berserk, I'm not sure is worth it, but I opted to do it just because I wanted to go faster. I wanted to press this button and then move around and throw my shields faster and deal more damage. So that's what I went for. Now I'll go ahead and give you guys a showcase of just a random atoll map, give you guys an idea what it looks like clearing. And this is something today I just tried out, was fork support over Awakened Vicious Proj. I might just like this more, to be honest. It just makes the skill feel better to play than Vicious Proj. Also, I should say I'm doing Avatar of Fire, plus I'm stealing the Forbidden Flame and Flush for Namhu's Flame, the other 50% conversion node. This was on trade. It was respectively 80 and 20C, so it was 100C for the whole set. I think this is a pretty good jewel, especially if you want to do fire conversion. So if you're doing a Marauder, you're doing fire conversion, look at this jewel. It's pretty good. It gives you 100% gain is extra 4 out of every 10 seconds. It's roughly on average 40% gain. Fizz is extra. Very strong for a jewel socket in my opinion. And the fizz conversion means a lot of times you can free up your glove slot to not have to get conversion there. That being said, if you're doing a fizz conversion build, you can get the mastery pretty easily, so it's not like necessarily mandatory or anything like that. So anyways, that's the setup I went for. I've been trying out fork support. I definitely like it more for clearing. 100% it makes the clear not suck, so fork support is probably the play, and ultimately it doesn't really feel like it's that much less single target than Vicious Proj. I took this out. I'm not sure if I like point blank or I don't like point blank. It should be consistently more damage most of the times, but there were times in the Uber fights when I couldn't really get up close and personal because there was so much degen ground that it made me feel like I shouldn't play with point blank in some of those fights. I'm coming up in the air, and I'm not 100% sure whether I like it or dislike it, to be honest with you, but I'll give a showcase of what this what happened to my gem sockets? I don't know why my shield throw ended up not on the bar, but anyways, we got it back. It wasn't a big deal. Shield throw has a special place in my heart in terms of a skill that I have always liked making builds with. I just think it's like cool, chucking a shield around, having it bounce around and hit things. I think it's super cool. As for how strong it is in the current game, I think it's kind of on the less popular, less loved side, which means a lot of the good things like the alt quality that gives a lot of crit multi, that ends up being cheap, it ends up being affordable. So it's one of those skills where it's definitely underpowered compared to some other skills, but because it's underpowered, it ends up being a skill you can quite reasonably get for a reasonable price. And we did that boss without Berserk. Berserk like gives us 60% more damage or something, so we hit a lot harder when we have Berserk up. But point is, I had a decent amount of fun with this. Solid character all in all. My one regret is maybe not going for a different amulet besides the Yoke of Suffering, but all in all, for 10 Divines, I'm pretty happy with this character, doing 6 out of 8 Ubers, being a build that can clean T16 maps pretty comfortably and pretty chill. It's going to be still not going to be S tier clear. It's one of those things where maybe I would have to fit in a chain support as well to make Special Shield Throw feel like an S tier clear, or on top of that, I didn't spec for Proj Speed. I'm right next to Proj Speed here, and this skill probably feels a lot better because right now I have no Proj Speed on it because I'm specing all this to focus on Ubers. If I focus a little bit less on Ubers, I spec out of some things, I start going for Proj Speed, this skill probably feels a lot better for clearing. So that's kind of on me specifically specking my build, trying to specialize for an Uber fight and not necessarily for all around doing maps and Ubers sort of situation. So anyways, this is the Spectral Shield Throw Juggernaut I went with. This is the approach I took. I think it turned out decently, and hopefully you enjoyed the video. As always, hopefully you guys are enjoying this challenge, and I will give you guys a quick look at the current standings of what we have here. And I managed to delete the page again. Okay, so we have Rutu did a Winter Orb Occultist when I did a SST Jugg, and props to him, he pulled out 7 out of 8. The one cool thing he did with this character is he min-maxed into curses. Anathema Ring, very, very strong, and he utilized that with the Vixen's Entrapment. It meant whenever he casted his mark on an enemy, the other 4 curses he was benefiting from in his build, which is Enfeeble, Punishment, Ellie Weakness, and Frostbite, I think, those all casted instantly. So it took out the feels bad of how do I apply these curses at max effect, and then added in a whole lot of damage scaling. Occultist plus the helmet that makes the minus res get 50% multiplier on it. Basically, he's subtracting the res all the way down to like -200 to deal damage to make Winter Orb actually a viable skill, and he pulled it off. So props to him, because Winter Orb, very hard to deal damage with that skill, and he managed to bring it home on a 10 to Divine does it. So pretty good on there. And then our SST Jugg, 6 out of 8. So next up, build number 7. I believe he's going to do an Aura Stacker. He's going to take a new spin on it. I think, yeah, I tuned into his stream. He's doing a Pathfinder. It should be pretty good. And I'm going to try tonight, I'll probably YOLO a Tri-Attribute Stacker. I really like doing Tri-Attribute Stackers. There's something about it I like. It's probably not something I should do on a 10 Divine budget, but I'm going to do it anyways, because it's fun. Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. As always, take care, Exiles, and peace out.